Hola amigos, soy Giovanni. En la clase de hoy vamos a aprender un verbo complicado. El verbo haber. Alright, so to be honest with you guys, this is one verb that I probably have struggled with the most while I've been learning Spanish. So what makes a verb haber complex? Okay, a couple of reasons. First of all, there's many different uses for the verb haber in Spanish. So there's a lot of different ways you can use this one. But also another reason why is because the verb haber, just like the verb tener, also means to have. Okay, but obviously the verb haber means to have, but in different ways. What I'm going to do is today I just want to introduce you to the verb haber. We're going to go through one of the main ways of using the verb haber, but in the future, in the months coming up, we're also going to tackle other ways in which you can understand and use the verb haber in your Spanish. So since we've been going through the past tense a lot recently, one of the most useful uses I've had personally with the verb haber is using it in the past principle tense, or using the verb haber as an auxiliary verb. So in English, think of when you want to say, I have walked a lot, or have you been to Europe? We have lived in Australia for a long time, so I have already eaten. Cool, so you can see just by looking at those examples there in English, we would translate like that in English to have as well. But because we're not talking about possessions, so remember we'll use the verb tener if we're talking about actual possessions that we're having. Alright, so now what do we do? Right, primero, first, we have to conjugate the verb haber in its personal pronouns. Okay, so the yo, tu, él or ella form, etc. So yo, so e. The tu form is has, so has. The él, ella or usted form is a, so a. The nosotros form, hemos, so hemos. And the ellos or ustedes form is han. So an. So those are the conjugations for the verb haber. Now as an auxiliary verb, okay, now we have to conjugate the verb that it's assisting. Alright, so conjugations are going to be slightly different as per normal, whether you're using an AR verb or whether you're using IR or ER verbs. So let's start off with AR verbs. Let's use the example I said before, caminar. So caminar, to walk. Alright, first of all, as per normal, we take the AR off the end of that verb caminar, and the conjugation with AR verbs is ado. So ado. So if you wanted to say, I have walked a lot recently, how would you translate that in Spanish? Cool, not too difficult. So you'd say, he caminado mucho recientemente. So he caminado mucho recientemente. Okay, one verb that I found really useful, using it in this tense with the verb haber, is the verb estar. So estar. So imagine if you wanted to ask, have you been to Australia? Have you been to New Zealand? Have you been to England? Have you been to America? Okay, those are really useful questions to ask someone. So if you wanted to say, have you been to Europe? How would you translate that in Spanish? Cool. So again, take the AR off estar. Has estado en Europa. So has estado en Europa. So in Spanish, you'd say en Europa. All right, I think you're getting it, but let me give you one more example. We have studied almost every day. Okay, the nosotros form. So hemos estudiado casi todos los días. So hemos estudiado casi todos los días. Awesome, is that starting to make sense? All right, now let me throw a few IR or ER verbs at you. All right, when we're using it with regular IR or ER verbs, the conjugation would be ido. So ido. So a nice simple one to start with. I have already eaten. Okay, you'd say ya he comido. So ya he comido. All right, I think that's setting in. One more example for you. Nice and simple. I have lost something. So I have lost something. Cool. En este caso, you'd say, he perdido algo. So he perdido algo. Alright guys, so that's all for today. So a quick introductory into the verb haber. Again, a very complex verb, but one that's really useful in the Spanish language, and you kind of can't go without learning this one. Now, as always, there are some verbs that are irregular as well as per normal. So for example, if you wanted to ask someone what have they said or what did you say, you'd say ¿Qué has dicho? So ¿Qué has dicho is the conjugation for the verb decir. So a really useful question that as well if you don't quite understand what someone just said to you. But apart from that guys, that is all from me. Espero que tengan un buen fin de semana.